Donald Trump's speech to US troops turned into a public meltdown, including a moment where he quite literally forgot how to speak. But before that disaster unfolded, his day started with one of the strangest, most disconnected moments we've seen in a while. Let's rewind to where it all began.
It's jobs, because to me the most important jobs, I want jobs. And we have costs are way down. Groceries, they have a term grocery. It's an old term, but it means basically what you're buying, food. It's a pretty accurate term, but it's an old-fashioned sound. But groceries are down, costs are down, eggs are down. They were, first week they were hitting me with eggs were up 200%, and now they're down to a number that is amazing. We're down 97, 98% from where they were. And everybody, they said, you won't have eggs for Easter. Well, we had everybody had eggs for Easter at a very reasonable price. At the White House, we had our little Easter egg roll, and we had hundreds of thousands of eggs purchased. They said, you have to go out and buy plastic eggs. That didn't work out.
Donald Trump just called groceries an old-fashioned term, like he just stumbled across it in a museum next to butter churn and lantern oil. He says eggs are down 98%, which is just pure math from an alternate universe. Next, he'll say gasoline is free if you believe hard enough. He talks about buying food like it's some rare cultural tradition he just discovered. Meanwhile, Walmart is raising prices, shelves are thinning, and Americans are actually feeling the cost of his fantasy economics. But he doesn't care. He's busy yelling about plastic eggs and how jobs mean jobs. And just wait, because next he takes aim at US generals and drops a word that left people stunned.
You can finish it off right now, sir. I said, well, I don't know, that's a lot. It's a lot of people. Well, these people are not good people, sir. These are not good people. You'll feel better about it. Well, they're not good people, but they're people, aren't they? And he goes, I said, you know what? Why don't you buzz them for a little while, and maybe after a day or two of buzzing them, they'll surrender. They don't know about surrendering, sir. Well, maybe they'll raise the white flag. They don't have a white flag, sir. I said, well, give it a shot anyway. He said, all we're going to do is take a couple of bullet holes in our wings. You guys know about that, right? And I said, well, let's give it a shot. And he calls up and says, let me do the job, sir. I said, all right, do the job. And we defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate in just a very short little period of time. Totally different from what I was told in Washington, D.C. by a bunch of frickin' losers, okay? Losers.
Yes, you heard that right. Trump just called US generals freaking losers. And he did it while standing on stage in front of actual service members. This is the same guy who called fallen soldiers suckers. Now he's back at it, mocking the military, pretending he knows better, and reducing strategy to cartoon-level buzzing and bullet holes. Classic Trump. Oversimplify, insult, and then pat himself on the back like he just stormed Normandy with a Sharpie. And right after this tirade, it gets even more embarrassing. He tries to talk about World War II, and it doesn't go well.
Remember, for World War I, because we won that war too. But think of it, I'm calling. Now, we love France, right? But I think we did a little more to win the war than France did. Do we agree? You know, I don't want to be a wise guy. But when Hitler made his speech at the Eiffel Tower, I would say that wasn't exactly ideal.
You can hear a few awkward chuckles, but mostly, the room just stalls. Trump's on stage in front of military personnel, rambling about Hitler at the Eiffel Tower like it's a stand-up set. The timing? Off. The point? Unclear. The crowd? Uncomfortable. It's one of those moments where even his supporters don't know if they should laugh or hide. But don't worry, the bizarre history lesson and the chaos far from over.
And I called up the president, Macron, good guy, by the way. Donald, we are celebrating our victory over the Germans. Oh, that's wonderful. No, we don't take credit for what we do. And I said, what the hell? Every country I've spoken to in the last week is celebrating the war but us. Isn't that terrible? So we're going to be doing holidays. But I said, it has to be a working holiday because, you can only do so many of them. We have a lot of holidays. I'm not so sure we should have them, and you don't have to go to work. Our country has to go to work.
So, just to recap, Trump thinks Macron is named Macronon, he believes America doesn't celebrate World War II, and now he's inventing a new category, the working holiday. Also, breaking news, there was no famous Hitler speech at the Eiffel Tower. It never happened. But that didn't stop Trump from rewriting history on a military stage. The only silver lining here, at least this time, he didn't praise Hitler outright, which by Trump standards might be considered progress. But the delusion doesn't end here, because next, he literally forgets how to speak. I mean, what is this?
Just apprehended, as an example, the ISIS terrorist of the Albrecht Grab, the one that caused all of the problems in Afghanistan.
Nobody knows what Albrecht Grow is. Not Trump, not his speechwriters, not Google. He just mashed words together like he was playing geopolitical Scrabble. And the best part? Look at the faces behind him. These are the people told to stand still, smile, and clap. And even they can't keep it together. They're visibly confused, laughing, whispering, because even Trump's handpicked backdrop knows this is nonsense. And that's exactly how the rest of the world sees us right now. Not as a superpower, but as the punchline in a very loud, very orange comedy routine. Even Trump's own allies in Congress are cringing. And one of them, Jared Moskowitz, who just went off on Trump for taking what sure looks like an unconstitutional bribe. Watch this.
Can you imagine just for a second if Barack Obama had accepted a plane from Qatar? My Republican colleagues would be calling it the Barack Hussein plane. Okay, I mean, this is just the height of ridiculousness at the end of the day. Okay, who gets a plane for $400 million and thinks it's free? Okay, first of all, it's going to cost about $750 million to retrofit the plane. That's number one. Number two is we're taking a plane from a foreign country. I mean, Putin's watching this thinking, what do I get Trump? Do I get him a yacht? Do I give him a piece of Ukraine, Trump Island? I mean, this is sending all the wrong messages, which is why you're seeing Laura Loomer, Ben Shapiro, Ted Cruz, and a number of my Republican colleagues come out. And the best part of this, the swampiest thing about this entire thing is the person who issued the memo approving the plane literally is a former lobbyist for Qatar. John, you can't make it up.
This is what a Republican meltdown looks like when even they can't spin the scandal. Jared Moskowitz hits every note. Hypocrisy, corruption, foreign influence, and lands it with a punchline. If Obama had accepted this plane, it'd be front page news for a decade. But Trump, he takes the plane, pretends it's free, and lets taxpayers eat the $750 million bill to retrofit it. And who greenlit this luxury bribe? A former Qatar lobbyist, because of course, even MAGA's own side is calling this one too corrupt to defend. And trust me, this crazy clip, it's far from over.
Congressman, you were talking about the spending, the $700 million of spending it could take to retrofit it. Spending, of course, is the focus of the so-called Doge caucus, of which you were an early member. How are things going with the Doge caucus?
Yeah, the Doge caucus is dead. You know, it had 2 meetings in 5 months. I was at both of them. You know, they said we were going to be included in the process, trying to find waste and make government more efficient. And the caucus was never included. Elon and his crew did it all himself. By the way, they forgot the E part of Doge. Nothing has been more efficient. Ask the people at Newark or flying these days if they feel that we've made the FAA more efficient. Nothing in government is working more efficient. Elon just came in and he got rid of people. He didn't know what he was doing. And so the Doge caucus was never included. It doesn't meet. It's defunct. It's dead, period.
Moskowitz just declared the Doge caucus officially dead, which is ironic because government efficiency also died somewhere around the same time. They promised to cut waste. Instead, Elon took over, gutted the FAA, and now travelers at Newark are praying planes don't fall from the sky. The caucus never met, never worked, never mattered, and the guy trying to run it all doesn't even know what the E in Doge was supposed to stand for. This is government by ego, and trust me, it's about to get even better.
Congressman, what lesson do you take away from that? Sorry, I couldn't hear the end of your answer there, but what's the lesson you take away from that?
Well, the lesson is Congress's power is waning, and that's happening under Speaker Johnson. That's by intent. All of the power is going to the executive branch. And so Congress, who has a constitutional role, the power of the purse for appropriations, right, was not involved. They've not codified any of these things that Elon says he found. Elon said he was going to try to find $1 trillion. He claims he only found about $160 billion, even if I use his numbers, which I'm not sure are accurate. That means he failed by 85%. He gets an F for what he tried to accomplish. Look, John, there is waste in government. And there is ways to make government more efficient. That's got to run through Congress, and it can be a bipartisan basis. That's what they said they were going to do. They didn't do any of it. All they did was come in and fire people. They made government less efficient, okay? And there is no savings to the debt. They did nothing with dealing with our debt, and there's no savings to pay for this $4.5 trillion tax cut that they're also going to add to the debt. It was a complete failure, and the caucus here is dead.
So let's get this straight. Elon promised to cut $1 trillion in waste, bragged about saving $160 billion, and still somehow missed the mark by 85%. If this were a school project, he'd get a big red F and a parent-teacher conference. Congress was sidelined, budgets were blown, and now they're adding $4.5 trillion in new tax cuts with zero accountability. It's not just broken, it's a parody of governing. And speaking of chaos, wait until you see what just happened inside Congress in this next part of the clip.
All right, so Republicans say that Medicaid, that they want to reform Medicaid to make it more efficient and find cost savings there. And there was this tense moment at the Energy and Commerce markup overnight between Republican Randy Weber and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where he basically accused her of grandstanding on it. Listen.
I just want to make the point that we'd like for you to address the Republicans, and let's have a dialogue this way and not to a camera. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
There are 13.7 million Americans on the other side of that screen right there. Hello? Hello. I'm talking to you because I work for you. And they deserve to see what is happening here. Because there are plenty of districts, including Republican ones, where 25% of your constituents are on Medicaid, 40% of your constituents are on Medicaid. And yes, I am talking.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I am talking to them, and I will not yield because it was a terribly disrespectful comment, and I will not yield to disrespectful men.
AOC just delivered a mic drop moment, and she did it right to the camera. While Republicans like Randy Weber were busy accusing her of grandstanding, she reminded them and everyone watching that she's speaking directly to the 13.7 million Americans on Medicaid who actually rely on this system to survive. And when she refused to yield, that wasn't about ego. That was about not backing down to yet another dismissive attempt to silence her voice. She stood her ground. For her voters, for transparency, and for accountability. And now we've reached the final part, and it's a good one.
All right, what do you think of that? And again, I will note the Republicans, what they say is they're making Medicaid more efficient.
Well, number one, good for her. Number two, she doesn't need anyone's help. She's one of the best communicators up here. And number three, she's right on the point. First of all, Donald Trump said he's not cutting Medicaid, okay? And so, that's what he's been saying, okay? And yet Republicans come with almost $800 billion of Medicaid cuts, which is what the Democrats have been talking about for the last 5 months. There are members here in the House and the Senate said they're not going to cut Medicaid. And it looks like, John, we're literally on our way to capitulation. And so, this is taking health care away from our most vulnerable to try to offset some of these tax cuts. They're still going to add trillions of dollars to debt. Don't listen to me. Just listen to Chip Roy or Thomas Massey, who are saying that.
What exactly is the plan here? Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed voice of the working class, is out here talking about how proud he is of a $400 million private jet he didn't pay for, while casually acting like groceries is a term he just coined. All of this while Republicans quietly push $800 billion in Medicaid cuts under the guise of reform. They say it's about efficiency, but the reality, millions of people could lose access to basic care while the wealthy cash in on another round of tax relief. And here's the kicker, they'll still tell you they're fighting for the middle class. Meanwhile, inflation is very real. Prices are rising at major retailers. People are budgeting harder than ever. And the same folks who promised they'd never touch Medicaid are now pretending none of this is happening. What you're seeing isn't a blip, it's a pattern. The press doesn't always stay on it. The political system isn't built to fix it overnight, but what we can do is talk about it, stay loud, and stay sharp. Here you can find the next crazy thing that just happened. Click on it. Until then, see you soon.